I thought their offer of twin alien sisters was a joke. Until the night began, the station had no real sky, but the lights above were programmed to fade like one. As the cycle shifted toward night, the long corridors of the diplomatic ring softened into shades of blue and silver. For most species, night was a time for rest. For humans, it was simply another setting. Elias Rourke stood near the observation window, hands behind his back, looking out at the slow curve of the station. Beyond it hung a field of distant stars, steady and uncaring. He had been sent here as a negotiator, not a dreamer, and he reminded himself of that often. The meeting earlier that cycle still bothered him. The Coalition of Nine had spoken with their usual calm confidence. Ancient beings, long-lived, careful with every word. They had discussed trade lanes, shared research, and mutual non-interference. All normal. Then near the end, one of them had tilted its elongated head and made the offer. "The twin sisters will be presented to your species." The translator had paused, as if uncertain. Elias had almost laughed. He had assumed it was a joke or a test of reactions. Humans were still new among the stars, still considered unpredictable. Some species enjoyed provoking them. Elias had smiled politely and replied that humanity did not accept ceremonial gifts tied to mythology. The coalition members had not reacted. They never did. Instead, they had scheduled the night convocation. Now, as the station dimmed, Elias felt a faint tension in the air. Not fear, more like anticipation. He checked the time display on his wrist and turned away from the window. The convocation chamber was circular, with no raised platform and no obvious center. Species of every shape and size stood or hovered in loose rings. The lighting was low, adjusted to a wavelength most could tolerate. Humans were in the minority, but not alone. Elias joined the small human delegation. Dr. Hana Verma gave him a brief glance. "You still think this is nothing?" she asked quietly. "I think it's either a mistranslation or a cultural misunderstanding," Elias replied. "And if it's not, we listen and we leave." She nodded, but her eyes stayed alert. The chamber fell silent without a signal. The coalition members entered together, their movements slow and precise. Between them walked two figures Elias had never seen before. They were similar in shape, tall and slender, with smooth forms that reflected the dim light. Their faces were almost symmetrical, but not identical. One held her head slightly tilted forward, eyes dark and focused. The other looked outward, gaze drifting as if following invisible paths. The translator whispered in Elias' ear, "The twin sisters." They did not look like warriors or rulers or prizes. They looked calm, observant. The coalition speaker addressed the chamber. "These are the sisters of witness," it said. "They are bound together yet separate. One sees intention, one sees consequence." A quiet ripple moved through the chamber. Elias felt it even among the humans. The speaker continued. "They are offered only once to a species. They walk beside you during the night. They see what you are when no one performs." Elias felt his earlier confidence slip. This was not theater. "What does that mean?" he asked aloud. The sister who watched forward turned her head toward him. Her voice was soft, but it carried. "It means," she said, "we will listen." The other sister spoke next, her tone slightly different, like an echo delayed by a heartbeat. "And we will remember." Elias swallowed. "And then what?" the coalition speaker answered. "Then the universe adjusts." That answer did not help. There was a pause, no pressure, no command, just waiting. Elias glanced at his team. He thought of humanity's history, of first contacts on Earth, of mistakes made through fear or pride. He thought of secrets and lies told for safety and truths hidden to avoid panic. He thought of preparedness drills, emergency plans, stories told to children about hope after disaster. "We accept," he said. A few alien delegates shifted. Dr. Verma closed her eyes for a moment, then nodded once. The night deepened. The sisters did not touch Elias or any human. They simply began to walk. The human delegation escorted them through the station, while observers followed at a respectful distance. At first, nothing happened. They passed research labs where humans worked alongside others, checking data, sharing tools. They passed living quarters filled with personal items, photographs, plants, handwritten notes taped to walls. The Sister of Intention paused near a wall display showing rotating engineering schematics. "You expect failure," she said. "Yes," Elias replied carefully. "That's how we prevent it." The Sister of Consequence tilted her head. "You imagine loss before it occurs." "So we can reduce it," Dr. Verma said. The sisters exchanged a glance. As they continued, subtle changes followed. Environmental systems adjusted slightly when humans entered rooms, not because of commands, but because the station itself seemed to anticipate their needs. Doors opened sooner. Lights brightened where human eyes struggled. Alien technicians noticed. Whispers spread. They reached a common area where a group of humans sat quietly, watching an old recording projected in the air. It showed a cracked planet surface and people rebuilding shelters under a gray sky. "Why show this?" the Sister of Intention asked. "Because it reminds us," Elias said. "We survive and then we help." The Sister of Consequence closed her eyes. For a moment the station felt very still. Images flickered briefly across nearby displays unrequested, not disasters, plans, flowcharts, stories, music written in dark times. Alien observers stepped back, uneasy. "This bond is accelerating," one of them murmured. Elias felt a chill. "Is that bad?" "It is unprecedented." They moved on, deeper into the station, into areas not meant for ceremony, maintenance corridors, backup control rooms, quiet places where humans went when they needed to think. The sisters followed without judgment. "You prepare even when no threat is present," the Sister of Intention said. "We don't like being surprised," Elias replied. The Sister of Consequence looked at him steadily. "You do not prepare only for yourselves." "No," he said softly, "we don't." The night cycle reached its deepest point. The lights dimmed further and the stars outside seemed sharper. Finally, the sisters stopped near the observation window where Elias had stood earlier. They turned together, facing the gathered delegates. "This species," the Sister of Intention said, "does not dream of conquest. But neither do they dream of peace as a permanent state," the Sister of Consequence added. "They imagine tomorrow breaking," the first continued. "And they plan how to hold it together," said the second. The chamber was silent. The coalition speaker stepped forward, its voice slower than before. "The night is not yet complete." The sisters spoke in unison, their voices calm, certain. "We have only begun listening." Elias felt the weight of that settle over him. He realized then that the offer had never been a joke, and that humanity was being seen fully for the first time. The night did not end when the station lights began to rise again. For many of the gathered species, the cycle marker meant closure. For the twin sisters, it meant nothing. They remained where they were, still and attentive, as if time itself had paused to listen with them. Elias felt it clearly now, not pressure, not fear, a sense of being fully present without armor or performance. He had negotiated treaties before, argued policy, hidden uncertainty behind careful words. None of that mattered here. The Sister of Consequence turned her gaze outward, toward the stars beyond the glass. "You look outward often," she said, "yet your thoughts return inward." "We look out to learn," Elias replied. "We look inward to change." The Sister of Intention nodded once. "Few species do both." Word spread quickly across the station. The bond had not faded as expected. Systems continued to adjust around human presence. Not dramatically, not visibly to the untrained eye, but enough that those who understood station mechanics noticed something impossible. The station was adapting without commands. Alien engineers gathered in quiet groups, speaking in careful tones. This had never happened before. The sisters were meant to observe, not influence, yet influence was occurring simply by proximity to human thought patterns. Dr. Verma stood beside Elias, her voice low. "They're not changing the station," she said. "They're showing it how to respond." Elias exhaled slowly. "Like teaching by example." The sisters began walking again, not toward public areas this time, but toward the human sector. No one stopped them. No one could. They entered the human planning hall, a place rarely visited by non-humans. The walls were filled with layered displays, future models, backup routes, ethical frameworks, and long-term projections that extended far beyond the current diplomatic cycle. The Sister of Intention stopped before a timeline stretching centuries ahead. "You plan for absence," she said. "Yes," Elias answered, "for failure, for when we're not here." "Why?" asked the Sister of Consequence. "Most species plan only for continuation." "Because things end," Elias said simply, "and we don't want our ending to leave chaos behind." The sisters exchanged another glance, longer this time. Around them, images began to shift. Not forced, not summoned. The displays reacted as if responding to a question never spoken aloud. They showed humans stepping back from power, dismantling systems that no longer served, leaving instructions for those who would come next. Alien observers watched in silence. Some felt discomfort. Others felt something closer to awe. The coalition speaker arrived quietly, its presence heavy. "This exceeds the scope," it said. The sister of intention turned. "The scope was insufficient." The sister of consequence continued. "You asked us to see what they are in the night. This is what they are when no one is watching." The coalition speaker hesitated. That alone was shocking. "What do you see?" it asked. The sisters did not answer immediately. Instead, they extended the bond outward. Across the station, humans paused, not frozen but aware. Engineers double-checked systems they had already verified. Medics reviewed protocols they hoped never to use. Artists adjusted unfinished work not to perfect it, but to make sure it could be understood by someone else. No alarms sounded. No orders were given. Preparedness moved quietly through the human mind like a second heartbeat. The sister of intention spoke. "They carry weight without being told it is heavy." The sister of consequence added. "They imagine responsibility before authority." A murmur spread through the gathered species. "They fear," the first continued, "but they do not let fear choose their actions." "They hope," said the second, "but they do not depend on hope alone." The coalition speaker lowered its head slightly, a gesture of respect rarely shown. "This classification is outdated," it said. Elias stiffened. "Classification? You were listed as observed developing," the speaker replied. "Passive evaluation, limited expectation." "And now?" Dr. Verma asked. The sisters turned together. "Now," said the sister of intention, "they are unsuitable for ignorance." "And unsuitable," added the sister of consequence, "for neglect." Silence followed. Not empty silence, but full, like the pause before understanding settles. "What does that mean?" Elias asked. The sister of consequence looked directly at him. "It means others will lean on you." Elias felt the weight of that statement more than any threat could have carried. "We didn't ask for that," he said. "No," the sister of intention agreed. "But you prepared anyway." The bond began to shift, slowly this time, not pulling away but loosening like a hand opening after holding something fragile. "This bond will end," the sisters said together. Alien delegates stirred. Some looked relieved, others looked uncertain. "But not as it has before," the sister of intention continued. "We will not erase what we have seen." "And neither," said the sister of consequence, "will the universe." The station system stabilized, no longer adjusting, but now changed at a deeper level. Human response patterns were logged, not as anomalies, but as reference points. The coalition speaker straightened. "Humanity," it said, addressing Elias and his delegation, "will be reclassified." Elias waited. "Custodians in potential." The term rippled outward, translated into dozens of conceptual languages. "What does that involve?" Elias asked carefully. The speaker answered, "It means when systems fail, you will be consulted. When conflicts threaten collapse, your methods will be studied. When hope is thin, your records will be preserved." "That sounds like a burden," Dr. Verma said. "It is," the speaker replied. "And you are the first species observed to carry it before being named." The sisters stepped back, the bond fading like the last echo of a long note. The night cycle finally ended, lights returning to neutral brightness. The station felt normal again. Almost. The twin sisters turned to leave, walking back toward the coalition. Elias took a step forward. "Was there anything else?" he asked. "Anything we failed?" The sister of intention paused. "You doubt yourselves even now," she said. "That is why you did not fail." The sister of consequence added, "Perfection would have disqualified you." They were gone moments later, escorted into privacy beyond human reach. The station slowly returned to routine. Meetings resumed. Trade schedules reopened, yet something fundamental had shifted. In quiet corners, alien delegates reviewed human records with new eyes. They saw not chaos but layered safeguards, not recklessness but careful risk, not arrogance but responsibility shaped by hard memory. Elias stood again at the observation window, much as he had before the night began. The stars looked the same. He knew better now. Dr. Verma joined him. "So," she said, "not a joke." He allowed himself a small smile. "No. What happens next?" Elias watched a distant star brighten as the station adjusted its orbit. "We keep doing what we've always done," he said. "We prepare, we care, and we don't pretend we're done growing." She nodded. Behind them, unseen but recorded, the universe adjusted its expectations. Humanity had not demanded a place among the stars. They had made themselves impossible to ignore. The change did not arrive with alarms or announcements. It came quietly, the way pressure changes before a storm. The station continued its normal rhythm, but beneath it, something new had taken root. Elias Rourke felt it in the days that followed. Messages arrived more often. Questions were framed more carefully. Other species no longer spoke to humans only as newcomers. They spoke as if checking a reference point. Humanity noticed too. Reports flowed back to Earth and to the outer colonies. Scientists argued late into the night. Engineers reread old assumptions. Philosophers found their work suddenly requested by people who had never cared before. The words custodians in potential carried weight, even without full definition. Elias attended another gathering, smaller this time. No ceremony, no sisters. Just representatives seated in a plain chamber. A delegate from a crystalline species spoke first. "We are experiencing system instability in a shared transit network. We seek human review." Elias did not answer immediately. He glanced at Dr. Verma and then at the data floating between them. "You've already run your own models," he said. "Yes," the delegate replied. "They predict acceptable failure." Elias nodded slowly. "That's not a model," he said. "That's a tolerance." He tapped the display, pulling up a human framework. It showed not just likely outcomes, but unlikely chains, small errors stacking together. "We assume something small goes wrong," Elias said. "Then we ask what happens next and who gets hurt when it does." The chamber was silent as the projections expanded. "This outcome was not calculated," the delegate said. "It wasn't ignored," Dr. Verma replied gently. "It just wasn't considered important enough." The solution did not require force or command. It required rerouting, shared redundancy, and one uncomfortable change in scheduling. The delegate bowed its facets slightly. "We will implement." After the meeting, Elias walked alone through the station's long corridor. He did not feel pride. He felt responsibility pressing closer, more real than before. Human crews began receiving invitations, not demands, requests. A Waterworld collective asked for help designing evacuation shelters they hoped never to use. A long-lived species asked why humans stored stories alongside technical manuals. "So people remember why the system exists," a human archivist explained. "Not just how." Some aliens found that strange, others found it unsettling. The most difficult moment came when a crisis did not happen. A deep space sensor failure suggested a cascading collapse in a nearby trade region. Panic spread fast. Several species prepared to isolate themselves. Humans did not rush to act. They waited. They checked assumptions. Verified sources looked for the missing data point that fear always hid. They found it. The collapse was not real. It was a feedback echo, a ghost signal repeating itself. When the truth spread, relief followed. But so did something else. "You did nothing," one delegate accused Elias later. "You delayed." "Yes," Elias replied, "because acting on wrong information causes real damage." The delegate studied him. "And if you had been wrong, then we would have owned that," Elias said, "and adjusted." That answer traveled farther than any report. On Earth, debates grew sharper. Some leaders welcomed the new role, others feared it. "We didn't agree to watch over the galaxy," one official argued. "We agreed to be honest about who we are," another replied. Elias followed the discussions from a distance. He had learned that leadership was not about control. It was about holding steady when expectations shifted. One night cycle, as he reviewed messages alone, a familiar symbol appeared on his display. No alarm accompanied it. Just a quiet request. The twin sisters wished to speak. They did not arrive in person. Their presence came through a narrow channel, focused and brief. "You continue," said the sister of intention. "Yes," Elias replied, "we're trying." The sister of consequence observed him silently for a moment. "You are tired." "We are human," Elias said. "That is not what we mean," she replied. "You are tired in advance." Elias leaned back in his chair. "That's also human." A pause. "Others now shape their choices around you," the sister of intention said. "Does this trouble you?" "Yes," Elias said honestly, "because we know how easy it is to be wrong." "And yet," said the sister of consequence, "you do not withdraw." "No," he said. "Because withdrawing doesn't remove impact, it just makes it careless." The channel flickered slightly, as if the sisters were considering something beyond words. "You fear becoming what others depend on," said the sister of intention. "We fear becoming what others obey," Elias corrected. The sister of consequence inclined her head. "Then listen carefully." The bond did not reform, but something like a lesson passed through. Custodianship is not permanence, she said. It is attention. And attention, added the Sister of Intention, can be shared. The channel closed. In the months that followed, humans began doing something unexpected. They taught, not dominance, not authority, process. They shared how to plan for failure without losing hope, how to argue without erasing empathy, how to build systems that assumed change instead of resisting it. Some species resisted, some embraced it, some adapted parts and ignored others. Humans did not force adoption. They documented outcomes instead. When asked why, Elias answered simply, because control doesn't scale, understanding does. The term custodians in potential slowly shifted meaning. It became less about guardianship and more about reference, a point others checked against, not bowed to. One evening, Elias stood once more at the observation window. He had stood there many times now, but this time felt different. The stars still did not care, but the people among them did. Dr. Verma joined him, holding a tablet filled with new requests. They want human observers in a systems council, she said. Equal voice, no override. Elias smiled faintly. That's good. You're not worried? I am, he said, but not about this. She raised an eyebrow. I'm worried about the day they don't ask anymore, he said. Because that will mean they've stopped thinking. She nodded slowly. Far beyond the station, far beyond any border, the universe continued exactly as it always had. Cold, vast, indifferent, but now, scattered across it, were minds learning how to prepare for each other. Humanity had not become rulers. They had not become saviors. They had become something quieter and far harder to remove. They had become a habit of care. And that, the universe would remember. The station no longer felt like a place where things merely happened. It felt like a place where choices were made carefully, with pause and thought. That change did not belong to any single species, but many quietly traced it back to the humans. Elias Rourke noticed it during a routine walk through the central ring. Conversations stopped when he passed, not out of fear, but out of thought. Delegates waited to finish ideas as if weighing words more than before. It was subtle, but it was everywhere. Humanity had become a mirror, not a perfect one, not a flattering one, but a mirror that showed what careful attention looked like when practiced daily. The shift created discomfort. Some species had built their cultures on certainty. Long timelines, stable systems, slow change. Humans, by contrast, carried the assumption that change would come whether invited or not. That difference created friction. The first real test came quietly. A long-established alliance proposed a new framework for shared infrastructure control. On the surface, it was efficient. Centralized, clean, many supported it immediately. Humans did not object. They asked questions. What happens if the controller fails? What happens if priorities change? What happens if someone disagrees 5 generations from now? The room grew tense. You assume failure, one delegate said, frustration clear. We assume reality, Elias replied calmly. The proposal paused, reviews were requested, timelines extended. Some accused humanity of slowing progress, others privately admitted relief. Days later, a young delegate from a minor species approached Elias in a quiet corridor. You make them uncomfortable, the delegate said. Elias nodded. We know. Why continue? Because comfort is not the same as safety, Elias said, and silence is not the same as agreement. The delegate considered that for a long moment, then bowed slightly. Thank you for saying it out loud. Back on Earth, the conversations changed again. Human media struggled to explain the role humanity now played. Some called it leadership, others called it interference. A few tried to brand it as destiny. Elias disliked that word. Destiny removed responsibility. Human councils debated limits, how far to go, when to step back, how to avoid becoming the thing they feared, unquestioned authority. The answer did not arrive as a policy. It arrived as a habit. Humans began declining certain requests, not angrily, not dramatically, simply honestly. This is not ours to decide. This requires voices beyond us. We can help you think, but we will not choose for you. At first, this confused others. Then slowly, it taught something more valuable than answers. Agency. The twin sisters did not return, but their influence lingered in the way people listened now. The universe had not changed its nature. It was still vast and indifferent, but awareness within it had deepened. Elias received a message marked as high priority. A systems council requested his presence, not as a representative but as an observer. He arrived to find the chamber filled with tension. A border dispute threatened to disrupt shared transit routes. No weapons, no armies. Just competing needs and limited space, enough to fracture trust. Voices rose, then fell, then rose again. Elias remained silent. After hours, someone finally turned to him. What would humans do? Elias paused. We would slow down, he said. Not because speed is wrong, but because once damage spreads, it's hard to contain. That doesn't solve anything, another delegate said. No, Elias agreed, but it gives you time to solve it without panic. Silence followed. The council adjourned without resolution. Some left frustrated, others thoughtful. 3 cycles later, a compromise emerged, not perfect, not final, but flexible. No one credited humanity officially. That mattered more than any title. Elias began preparing to leave the station. His term was ending. Others would take his place. That was how humans avoided building monuments to individuals. On his final evening, he walked one last time through the observation corridor. The stars were quiet, always had been. Dr. Verma joined him, carrying a small data pad. They're asking if you'll stay longer, she said. Elias smiled faintly. That's kind. You're not tempted. I am, he admitted. But that's why I shouldn't, she nodded, understanding immediately. If we stay too long, he continued, we stop being a reference and start being a fixture. And fixtures don't get questioned, she said. Exactly. As his departure neared, messages arrived from across the station. Brief notes, quiet thanks. Requests he gently redirected to others. On the final day, a familiar symbol appeared again on his display. The same as before, calm, precise, the twin sisters. This time their presence felt lighter. You are leaving, said the Sister of Intention. Yes, Elias replied. Do you believe your species will continue this path? Asked the Sister of Consequence. Elias considered carefully. No, he said. We'll stumble, we always do. The sisters waited. But, Elias continued, we've learned to notice when we stumble and to say it out loud. The Sister of Intention inclined her head. That is sufficient. You are no longer unique in this space, said the Sister of Consequence. Elias felt a flicker of concern. Is that bad? No, she replied. It means the habit has spread. The channel closed gently, like a door left unlocked rather than shut. Elias departed the station without ceremony. No speeches, no honors, just a quiet transfer shuttle moving away from the ring. As he looked back, the station did not seem smaller. It seemed steadier. In the years that followed, humanity's role continued to evolve. They were consulted less for answers and more for methods. Other species began building their own systems of anticipation, their own cultures of shared responsibility. Some did it well, some poorly. Humans documented both. Conflicts still happened, failures still occurred, but recovery came faster, learning spread wider. The universe did not become safe, but it became more aware of itself. Long after Elias returned to Earth, after new envoys took his place and new debates rose and fell, a quiet phrase entered shared language across species. Have you checked the human question? It did not mean asking humans what to do. It meant asking, what happens if this goes wrong and who pays the cost? That question alone prevented more damage than any weapon ever could. Humanity never claimed credit. They did not need to. They had become something rare in the vastness of space, not conquerors. Not saviors, but a reminder. That thinking ahead was not fear. That care was not weakness. That attention once learned was hard to forget. And somewhere in the deep night between stars, the universe continued to listen, not because it had been commanded to, but because someone had shown it how.